Podcasting for fun and profit. Introduction. It's all about you. If you grew up in a household where the newspaper was delivered on Saturday morning, you were probably involved in the weekly fight to get the section you wanted. Maybe Dad wanted to read the news, and Mom wanted the lifestyle section. An older sister might want the entertainment, and an older brother might want the automotive section, and the youngest child in the house will probably ask for the comic section. The newspaper was delivered to the front door. Dad went outside in his slippers and picked it up, and the paper was distributed to the house according to the interests of the people in the family. While the idea might generalize the interests of the people living near house, the weekly newspaper section grab is played out across America. People's lives are busy, and not everyone is interested in everything all the time. You don't have the time to cut through the clutter of information. You simply want to get at the thing that interests you and ignore the rest. As the information age increases, and the availability of content seems to grow exponentially every single day, the need for organization and selectivity of information and entertainment becomes more and more important. The internet has allowed exactly this kind of selectivity, except there is still a sense of you having to go out and find the information you're looking for example, through a search engine, and then choose from a list of related choices. Podcasting has changed that. Podcasting lets you choose the types of information or entertainment you're interested in getting. And then it automates the process by downloading new shows as they are updated. You'll learn a lot through this book as you go from beginner to pro, but don't lose sight of the most important thing. Podcasting can be a convenient way to be entertained or informed, but most importantly, it's a lot of fun. You're going to hear a lot of technical terms and do a little legwork to get your first podcast into the world. But don't let that slow you down. Have fun with it. What is podcasting? Questions this chapter will answer. What is podcasting, and why is it so popular? How come I've never heard of it before? Who uses it? Why would I want to know more about it? How can it help me? Can it help improve my business? Can I make money from it? Is it safe to do? Or can I get a computer virus? Does it take a lot of work? Can I use my Palm device or smartphone to hear podcasts? Will it still be around in the future? What you need to know. Introduction. The term podcasting can be confusing to some people because it draws its origin from the combination of the word iPod and the word broadcast. While you do not need an iPod to enjoy podcasting, the term probably caught on for convenience and its audible similarity to the word broadcast. By the end of this book, you'll know what podcasting is, be able to find and enjoy podcasts at your convenience, and have the chance to do your very own podcasting. The technical stuff is not as scary as some people might think, and you'll be surprised how easy it is to get involved. So if you're afraid that it might be too technical over your head, keep reading. What is podcasting? Although we'll get into the technical terms later, podcasting is an audio file that you can listen to on your computer or on a portable device. Note that it does not have to be an iPod, but can be almost any kind of portable audio device, also referred to as an MP3 player. An MP3 player, though, is also a misnomer because these devices will often play more than just MP3 files. How can I understand podcasting? If you were to ask someone on the street what podcasting is, most of them will not have any idea what you are talking about. They will ask if you said broadcasting. You might explain to them that it is a special audio file that you can listen to on your MP3 player. But even then, you would not be doing it justice. Here are some other ways of understanding what podcasting is. Example, in the introduction section, you were probably reminded of your childhood when the people in your household fought over the sections of the newspaper that had been delivered to your door. If you can imagine that same newspaper, rather than being delivered in one section to your front door, but being packaged up in individual sections for each member of your family, with the sections that are not read left out completely. That is one way to think of podcasting. The information that you are interested in delivered to you without the stuff you don't want. Some people have called podcasting Thai vo radio. Another way to think of podcasting is like a radio program that is only about your specific interests. And when you click the link or synchronize your MP3 player with your computer, it gets downloaded to you automatically. It's like you're the owner of the radio station. You tell the DJ what you want to hear, and they'll play it for you. All news, all sports, regular updates on the financial markets, entertainment news, information on your industry. No problem. It's all at your personal DJ's fingertips, and in moments it's playing in your ears. And a third way to think of podcasting is a targeted audio program for businesses to add value to their customers and prospects, and for organizations to pass information on to their users. However you think of podcasting, other people will still give you a funny look because it is still in its infancy. In fact, the term podcasting was only coined in 2004. It won't be long, though, and everyone will be talking about it. How does it work? Essentially, podcasting allows you to select the things you'd like to listen to, subscribe to them, have them downloaded to your computer or portable audio device, and listen to them when you want to. Once you've subscribed, they will update automatically for you, like a magazine you don't think about until the subscription arrives in your mailbox every month. What is the advantage of a podcast over other types of broadcasting? Podcasts assimilate radio, portable CD players, and satellite radio into one convenient format and allow new uses not previously available. So what is it that you can listen to? What kinds of podcasting are available? The answer to those questions is this: everything you can possibly imagine. You will be amazed at the volume and variety of podcasts out there and the possibilities that exist. Just as the internet has allowed pretty much anybody to create visual files of information and entertainment, called web pages, podcasting has allowed virtually anybody to create audio files of information and entertainment. While the technical details are not important here, all someone needs in order to become a podcaster is a computer and an internet hookup. You don't even need a microphone to create your first podcast. You may want to get one later, but you don't need one now. In fact, if you have a telephone and can browse the internet, you will be able to listen to podcasts and even create your first podcast by the end of the next chapter. Who can podcast? Anyone can podcast. We'll go into much greater detail later about who might want to podcast, but generally speaking, there are several reasons why everyone would want to podcast. Organizations like churches and nonprofits will podcast to keep people up to date with what's going on, providing news, seminars and speeches, meeting transcriptions, etc. Businesses will podcast to maintain their name in the marketplace, offer information on products or strategies, and position themselves as the expert in their industry. Individuals will podcast if they have something to say to the world. Opinions, rants, and artistic offerings are all fair game in podcasting. Podcasting formats are as varied as the types of podcasts available. Some podcasts are like monologues, where one person simply shares their ideas into a microphone for the listener to hear. Other podcasts are a dialogue between two or more people and may or may not follow format. Some podcasts are unscripted, while others seem to be very scripted. Podcasting contain music, interviews, And while audio podcasts are quite popular now, audio/video podcasts are slowly gaining popularity as well. All the history you need to know, and nothing else. The history of podcasting is well chronicled, but you're not reading this book to get a history lesson. You're reading this book to develop a new hobby or business, or enhance an existing one. So we've condensed the information here so you can get up to speed in about 30 seconds. The idea of sending files of sound over the internet is not new. It was just a matter of taking existing elements, like MP3 and RSS, and reworking them to allow technological visionaries to create a new form of communication. Personal web journals called weblogs, or blogs, have been around for a while so people could voice opinions and provide information to others. People use these blogs as a personal platform, so it was only natural to add files of sound to their textual offering. RSS was a file format for sending sound, but was not extensively used. It was developed into RSS with enclosures, allowing someone to attach MP3 files. When attached to an RSS file, these sound files could be sent automatically to subscribers, people who were interested in hearing what the person had to say, and downloaded to be heard at their convenience. The term podcasting was coined in 2004, and in just a few months, it went from being an unknown concept and an uninvented word to a Google search result in the millions. Podcasts are springing up nearly every day, like weeds, but good weeds. Now everyone is jumping on board the podcasting bandwagon, from politicians, pundits, professionals, producers, and even pornographers. Anyone with something to say, or a product or service to sell, or an opinion to share can podcast. And many already are. Advantages/disadvantages. Podcasting, just like any other technology, has advantages and disadvantages. There is one primary factor that is both an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time. Podcasting is the unexplored country, the Wild West of technology. This means that anyone with something to say has an opportunity to say it, whether they have political views they want to share at the world, or success tips to help people improve their lives. And the result is you're going to get podcasts, which provide real value, and podcasts, which waste your time, and podcasts, which could potentially offend. You'll get podcasts with nothing to say, and podcasts that say way too much, until a regulatory body is established that will bring some structure to the industry. Podcasting is open to anyone and everyone who wants to get in on it, whether the things they have to say are of value to people or not. This is both an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time. Seeing what kind of podcasts are out there, though, and selectively choosing the ones you want, will allow you to take advantage of the advantage. How can podcasting help your business? If you have a business, podcasting has many applications that allow you to get in front of your customers, get your name out there, and ultimately make you more money. Later in the book, we'll show you ways that you can use podcasting to add value to your customers' lives. And at the end of this book, we'll show you 10 ways that will help you make money with podcasting, whether you own a big business or small one. It's a great way to boost your business with a very small investment of money and time. If you are not ready to make the leap to full-time podcaster, there are other ideas that we've included in our business podcasting suggestions. For example, you can podcast on an area of the industry you currently work in as an employee. Show yourself to be interested in learning more about the business, and you could find yourself considered as an up-and-comer when the next round of promotions happens at your office. Alternatively, you can moonlight outside of your job as a podcaster. You can do this on a free basis as a hobby, or in the capacity of an entrepreneur, looking to eventually build your part-time business into a full-time career. You'll learn much more about these options later in the book. A similar concept, palmcasting is a similar concept to podcasting, except it applies to PDA devices which can receive and play podcasts. Punchcasting is a way of receiving podcasts in your smartphone without having to sync it onto your computer first. It requires that you have a smartphone with RSS. The future of podcasting. The future of podcasting is wide open right now because it is still a fledgling industry without a regulatory body. While podcasting is just catching on and only a couple years old, people are already talking about Zencasting or vidcasting, which is similar to podcasting but contains video as well. But it doesn't stop there. Visionaries will see beyond podcasting, and even though it is exciting and new, technology advances so rapidly that it will get old very quickly. What is around the corner, and how will podcasting influence it? Soon, we may find highly interactive vidcasts that are automatically made available to us without us having to subscribe to them, based simply on our browsing or online buying habits. And the technology will be streamlined enough that computers will automatically come with the programs that go out and catch the podcasts without having to download additional programs. Take action. Useful sites on what is podcasting. http://n Wikipedia. org/wiki/podcasting. Wikipedia is an online open encyclopedia that collects and synthesizes information. Anyone can contribute and add to pages, so it provides real value as an ongoing source of information. If you want to learn more about podcasting and many of the related terms and technologies, go here. EBOOK. This site is one of the original and most popular sites available on the internet for podcasters. It acts as a directory for people interested in listening to podcasts, although it can be difficult to navigate around if you want to find other information than what's on their main page. Visually, it is so-so, but it is a pioneer in the podcasting industry. Podcasting tools. This is an excellent site about podcasting and takes you through everything from an introduction to how to podcast, as well as the technical aspects of podcasting. It doesn't look great, but it's quite functional and informative. Apple. Apple, from whose product podcasting derives its name, has a very visually pleasing site on podcasting. It is fairly comprehensive, and even a non-Apple owner should find useful information and links there. Podcasting news. This might be a little advanced for the beginner, but it is an excellent and comprehensive news site devoted solely to podcasting news. Once you're familiar with podcasting and want to really benefit from the industry and stay on top of it, this should be in your favorites folder. Podcast Pickle. This is an excellent site about podcasting, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. It claims to be the best on the internet, and that is probably a fairly accurate claim. It's definitely one of the best, and very comprehensive too. Do it now. For personal podcasters. 1. After reading this chapter, go online and check out some of the sites to see what other kinds of information is out there. 2. Think about 2 or 3 areas of interest you have that you might like to hear podcasts of. What kind of hobbies do you have? Are there places you like to travel? What do you like to do in your spare time? What do you spend your money on? Thinking ahead on available. 3. Come back and read the next chapter to learn about how you can download podcasts and start listening right away. 4. Also, start thinking about an area you might like to podcast in as well. Don't worry about how just yet. Just think about what might be interesting to you. Take it to the next level. If you are really excited about the opportunity to podcast, then take a moment to select 2 or 3 topics and start brainstorming some subtopics that might be interesting to podcast on. It doesn't have to be perfect yet, since you'll be working on it a bit more in the next chapter and in the chapters to come. But it's a good idea to get some thoughts on paper. Do it now. For business podcasters, 1. After reading this chapter, go online and check out some of the sites to see what other kinds of information is out there. 2. Think about 2 or 3 areas of interest you have that you might like to hear podcasts of. Specifically, think about an area you'd like to improve in your business, like marketing, for example. What is your competition doing? 3. Come back and read the next chapter to learn about how you can download podcasts and start listening right away. 4. Think about an area of your business or industry that you might be able to host a regular podcast about. Take it to the next level. You can probably already see some opportunities for you to start a business or increase your current business through podcasting. If you have finished step 4, above, then you may want to create some subtopics under each heading to start thinking about specific podcasts that you can do. Wrap up. A summary. Podcasting is a new and exciting combination of existing technologies that allows people to hear information on topics of interest to them. Podcasting is a blossoming opportunity, and everyone is getting on board. It benefits the podcaster as an opportunity to be heard. It benefits you as the listener, as a way to get only the information you want and to listen to when and where you want. And podcasting is an opportunity for the entrepreneur to develop into a part-time or even full-time business. Watch your step. Podcasting is an unregulated medium, which means no standards or quality control. People can turn to the medium if they find regulations keep them from sharing their views on other forms of media. That means that not all podcasts will have content that you or your children will want to hear. Be sure to monitor what podcasts your family members hear, and be prepared you weed through the many podcasts out there right now. The 3 things you need to know. 1. Podcasts can be an informative way of learning or being entertained, while giving you the greatest amount of control on what to listen to and when or where to listen. 2. Podcasting is a great tool to be used by individuals, business, and organizations looking to connect with other people in a way that can add value to the lives of interested and dedicated subscribers. 3. Podcasting is still in its early stages, so learning about it now will help you cash in on the opportunities that lie just around the bend in the road. Stay tuned. In the next chapter, we'll talk about how you can start enjoying podcasts today and how you can start podcasting. It's easier than you think. In fact, it will probably take you longer to read the next chapter than it will to listen to your first podcasts and create your own. And later, you'll find out how you can make really good podcasts for personal or business use. Getting started by downloading and listening. Questions this chapter will answer: what kinds of podcasts are out there? Will I find a podcast that I might be interested in? How can I listen to a podcast? Can you help me download my first podcast? Do I have to commit to anything? Does it cost anything? How can I get started in podcasting? Can I try it out first before I have to buy anything? What happens if I love it and want a podcast professionally? What you need to know. Introduction. If you tell people that you are getting into podcasting and would like them to subscribe, they will probably tell you that they can't since they don't have an iPod. The great thing about listening to podcasts is that you don't even need an iPod to do it. And while its beauty is the potential portability, you don't need a portable MP3 player to join either. If you have either one, you can enjoy podcasts on the go. But all you need is a fairly recent computer with a program like Windows Media Player, and you can get started right away. How to download, and we'll go into a little greater detail about the technical aspect of listening to podcasts. But for now, we will look at how you go about downloading and listening to a podcast, and listen to a one right now. What we'll do next is download the program you need to get podcasts. Then we'll find a podcast and tell the program to retrieve it for us. Then we'll enjoy listening to one. There are many free retrieval programs called aggregators out there, but we'll use Doppler, which is one of the best ones, and it's free. Are you ready? Let's get started. Project 1. Get set up and listen to a podcast. Uses of podcasting. Radio stations have turned some of their programs into podcasts, which they upload daily and make available to people who might enjoy the program, but are unable to listen to it when it is initially broadcast over the airwaves. Companies like General Motors and Microsoft create podcasts that combine information and product news for people who may be interested, such as investors or car or computer buffs or industry analysts. Companies can put basic instructions and training manuals on podcasts for someone to talk through a new user step by step. Musicians, poets, writers, and other creative people can create podcasts of their work so that they can market themselves to a wider audience. Churches create podcasts of their sermons, which they make available to anybody, replacing the cassette tapes, which used to be a popular format for ministers. News channels like CNN will put their headlines and some of the brief news stories into a podcast's format. Sports teams create podcasts to tell fans about what is going on, like a very specialized sports show just for the team you're interested in. Or fans create podcasts to share opinions or rants about their favorite teams. Museums, art galleries, and historical sites create broadcasts for users to listen to as they walk through, replacing the human guide that would do tours and allowing an individual with a personal audio player to go through at their own pace. The director of the sci-fi television show Battlestar Galactica creates a regular podcast to tell subscribers about the behind-the-scenes effort to make the show. Individuals with opinions and ideas make their own podcasts in order to share those opinions and ideas with the rest of the world. Politicians create podcasts as a way to relate to their platform to listeners in a format that does not get interrupted by their opponents. Schools create podcasts of their lessons so students can listen again and again. Book or movie reviewers can review books in podcast format. Chefs who want to have their own cooking show but haven't quite yet been contacted by a network can host an audio version of their cooking show. This is not a bad idea to also market step-by-step cooking podcasts for college students who have just moved away from home. Companies are using podcasts as an alternative for meetings or conferences. An astronaut created a podcast while he was in space recently. The very first podcast from space. Experts in the field create podcasts to tell others about development and their field, like an entrepreneur sharing money-making ideas or a leader of global development calling for the end of poverty. This may seem like a lot of different ways, but it is far from comprehensive, and by the time you're done reading this, you'll likely have thought of more ways to use podcasting. Whatever you decide to do, be sure that it's something you enjoy. Podcasting is not only about convenience, it should also be about having fun. Forums on podcasting. Forums are a place on the internet to post and receive messages. Think of forums like bulletin boards, where people post questions and suggestions and advice along with responses. It's similar to the home message board by the telephone in a lot of people's kitchens. It's a highly interactive way to communicate on the internet. Podcasting news. This is an excellent forum about podcasting. covering absolutely everything you could imagine about the industry from content and creating podcasts to podcasting and the law and the business of podcasting. If you have questions about podcasting, whether technical or otherwise, these forums should help you. But be a good internet citizen and help others who have questions once you've gained some experience preparing your first podcast. In a moment, you'll get a chance to do your very first podcast. It's easy, it's free, and it should take less than 10 minutes. Although your actual podcast will only take about 5 minutes. As you read through this book, you will discover that content is vital to finding and keeping subscribers. So before you began your first podcast, start out on the right foot by creating good content. While some podcasts have fancy sounds and a witty host and guests, your initial podcast will just be you, but it will still be posted on the internet. So you want to make a good quality podcast, especially if you fall in love with podcasting and want to continue. Project 2, preparing to podcast. 1. Spend 1 to 2 minutes and brainstorm some topics you are interested in. He doesn't have to be new and brilliant content for your first podcast. It should simply be something you have a passion for. 2. Select 1 or 2 of those topics that catch your eye. 3. Spend 1 or 2 minutes and brainstorm interesting facts that you know about those topics. 4. Group those facts together under 1 or 2 headings. 5. By now, you probably see the one you want to podcast the most. If not, you'll need to choose one now. 6. Go online and find a website that talks about that topic, as well that you can review in your podcast. 7. Write down an upcoming event that is related to your area of interest. For example, if the area you're going to podcast on is genealogy, you might be able to find a local genealogical society which has a genealogy fair coming up. If you can't find anything, think of a past event that you can review. 8. Develop a brief script on your own, or from the example in the example box that follows this exercise. Here is an example script for your very first podcast. Hello and welcome to our very first podcast at your web address, which you will get shortly in the next exercise. My name is your name, and today we're going to be talking about your topic. In this podcast, we'll be talking about heading #1 and heading #2. Later, we'll review a website and talk about an upcoming event. First, we're talking about heading #1. Did you know that? Talk about the interesting facts you wrote down. Second, we're talking about heading #2. Did you know that? Talk about the interesting facts you wrote down. Now is the time in our show where we review a website. Today's website is, say, the web address and the name. If it's different, briefly describe the website and rate it on how helpful or informative it was, as well as how easy it was designed to navigate around. Finally, we've got to mention the upcoming event. Mention who, what, where, when, cost, what to bring, what to expect. We've had a great time on the show today and look forward to having you tune in next time. That was easy, wasn't it? Sure. There's nothing to it. You probably don't even need the script, but in case you do, you have one available. It's a good idea to work from a script, even if you don't read it directly, to help you stay focused. Now you have heard other podcasts, and you've created your own script. Are you ready? Let's podcast. How to become a podcaster. Becoming a podcaster is so easy. Why not try it out right now for free and see if it's something you're interested in doing on a regular basis? There are 2 excellent methods available for podcasters, and we recommend you use them both. The first is a free way that you can use to try out podcasting and see if it's for you. It lets you create simple 5-minute podcasts for free. All you need to do is sign up at their site. First, you'll be creating a blog, which is like a personal web page, but designed to let you voice your opinion. Remember, They were the forerunners of podcasts. A blog is like your very own personal journal or diary, but one that you leave open for others to read. It can be about personal things, about your job, about your favorite hobbies, about a pet. Anything of interest to you that you might write in a diary can go in a blog. You don't have to have a blog in order to podcast. You just have to have a web page. However, if you want a podcast for free, creating a blog, as we will shortly, is a quick and painless way to get a place to put your podcast. Please note, this is just for beginning podcasters. The other program, described later, is more appropriate for the serious podcaster who wants to either supplement their current income or even earn a living from podcasting. This following instruction is mainly for the hobby podcaster with opinions to share with the world, and for people who want to see what it's like before they invest in more serious podcasting. The first program can be found at http://www.audioblogger.com/ and essentially all you do is call their telephone number and deliver a podcast up to 5 minutes in length. Before you do that, you need to sign up. Here's how. Project 3. Become a podcaster. 1. Go to http://www.blogger.com/ start to create a blog. If you're not sure what you want to make your blog about, just start with a blog about yourself or an interest or hobby. 2. Follow their setup process to create an account, name your blog, and select a template. You'll be surprised. It's very easy and a lot of fun. Even if you decide not to podcast, you now have a blog. 3. Once you have set up your blog, go to http://www.audioblogger.com/. It's the same company. 4. Follow their setup process to create an account by inputting your blog ID, your home phone number, and a PIN number. 5. Figure out what you want to say. Maybe write something down so you sound coherent. 6. Call 1-415-856-0205. 7. Follow their instructions to input your home phone number and PIN. This allows you to call from anywhere and deliver your podcast. 8. If you enjoyed yourself and want to get an audience, submit your podcast to podcast hosting sites. You'll find their websites below, and they usually have a submit link on their front page. That was easy. If you've caught the podcasting bug, you might be ready to go pro. In this case, you'll probably want to expand beyond the limitation of a 5-minute podcast on a free site. Going pro. If you want to make the leap from hobbyist to professional, to either boost current business or start a new business, you can. You'll need a couple extra programs to create a quality sound. Here are some recommendations to get you started. Well, technically, you can get started with the microphone that probably came with your computer. You'll want to likely invest in a slightly better microphone, or if you have more than one person speaking in your podcast, you'll need to get more than one microphone. A good place to start, without having to rob a bank, is to buy a USB microphone at an office supply store. They are affordably priced, and unless you're planning studio-quality production, they will do an excellent job for you. The length-to-width ratio. It is quite easy to podcast. I'm sure you're surprised at how easy it is. It's quite another thing, though, to maintain a podcast on an ongoing basis. A lot has been discussed about the regularity of podcasts and exactly how frequent a podcast needs to be. While it is true that the frequency of a podcast does depend largely on the material that is covered, it is also true that subscribers may not be able to listen as frequently as you want to podcast. If you have a lot of material and are looking to make a daily podcast, you might want to consider a very short podcast of 2 to 5 minutes, like email that gets stacked up in your inbox. Podcasts that don't get listened to compile very quickly if a subscriber doesn't get a chance to hear a few of them in a row. Often what happens after that is a delete the whole batch, figure they've missed too much vital information, and unsubscribe. On the other hand, too infrequent of a podcast will mean that people do not feel the same ownership in listening as they would from something a little more regular. When it's all said and done, you need to know what material you need to cover and how much time you have to spend on podcasts in order to determine how frequently you are going to podcast. This is the length-to-width ratio, the length of your podcast in relation to the width of the material. Look at other podcasts to see what kind of material may cover and the relationship that has to the frequency they produce these podcasts. CNN, for example, can produce a daily podcast that is very short because of the nature of its headline-style material. Their podcasts are very short. A podcast covering the world of baseball might be better off podcasting every week, since they will be able to talk about a couple of the games as well as some news. Their podcast can be 15 minutes to half an hour, which seems appropriate. Lastly, a financial specialty podcast might only come out once a quarter and can be an hour long as they discuss business news and economic developments in the past 3 months. The length of their podcasts, based on the weighty material they are covering, seems appropriate. In each of the cases above, it is possible to imagine a subscriber spending the time listening to each podcast because their length is appropriate for the material. How much time should I put into my podcast? Being aware of the length-to-width ratio of your podcast will help you determine how appropriate a frequency you need. But there's another factor to consider as well. It is the how much work is it going to be for me factor. If you are running a business or are busy at your day job, you will not have the time to put in the effort to create a quality podcast on a frequent basis. It doesn't take much for CNN to create a 5-minute podcast about news headlines because they are in the business anyway. And it doesn't take a lot for the financial analyst to create a 1-hour podcast every 3 months because they spent the past 3 months gaining the material. Your challenge as a podcaster is to create a regular podcast that does not take so much of your time that it loses its enjoyment. That's why we recommend podcasting on an area of interest or a hobby. If you are a personal podcaster, or podcasting on your business or industry, if you are a business podcaster. And if you are a business owner, you know how little time you have already. So you may not want to spend an hour or 2 a week to create a 15 minutes to half an hour podcast with such regularity. There has been a lot of discussion about the ideal frequency of podcasts. It usually boils down to the length-to-width ratio that you need to consider whether you can maintain the momentum. Here is a step-by-step process to determine whether you'll be able to keep up with the demands of a regular podcast. Project 4. Developing your podcast. 1. Across the top of a blank piece of paper, write down 5 ideas you have that you might like to podcast about. In another chapter, we'll show you how to improve your content to gain subscribers. But for now, this is a good place to start. 2. Record how frequently you want to do each podcast, daily, weekly, monthly, etc. 3. Under each idea, list all the subtopics you would like to cover in your podcast. For example, if you want to cover Major League Baseball, you might write down such items as recent player trades, highlights of recent games, things to watch out for in upcoming games, an analysis of player stats, a review of an event in the history of baseball, and a review of a baseball movie or book. 4. In brackets, beside each subtopic, write down the number of minutes it would take you to cover that in a podcast, and the number of minutes it would take you to prepare and research that information. 5. Add up all the minutes it would take for you to cover those topics in a podcast. This will be the length of your podcast. 6. Write that total above your idea. 7. Now add the second number. The length of time really take you to prepare and research the information. 8. Add that number to your podcast length. 9. Write that number above your idea as well. With this new information, you are able to determine how long you want your podcast to be, how frequent you want it to be, and how much time you'll have to put into it in order to reach your goal. Often, people's initial goals in their podcast are too lofty and required too much time for them to do a good job on a consistent basis. In upcoming chapters, we'll show you how you can improve that by narrowing down the focus of your audience. At this point, though, you simply need to look at the chart you created to determine if you are able to spend that amount of time doing the job and a regular basis. Because that's what it is. Add job. You may not get paid for it yet, but your subscribers are expecting you to produce on a consistent basis. Maintaining momentum. Doing a good job on a regular basis requires some discipline and legwork on your part. In this subsection, we will look at some ideas to help you maintain the momentum once you have started podcasting. Here are some ideas that you might want to include in one or all of your podcasts. Commentary on the industry by you. Commentary on the industry by industry analysts. Book, movie, or television show reviews related to your area of interest. Listeners phone in for help. Interviews with movers and shakers of the industry. Review and analysis of past events, games, conferences, changes. Preview of upcoming events, games, conferences, changes. Answer subscriber emails. Review significant historical events or records that were set in your industry or area of interest, or general historical events that had an impact on your industry or area of interest. Analyze statistics, scores, financials, and/or other quantifiable facts about the area yet you are podcasting in. Like game scores if you're covering sports, or quarterly reports if you're covering the stock market. Highlight a website that is related to or contributes to the area yet you are podcasting on. These are just some of the many Haynes you can view any podcast to keep it interesting and fresh. In an upcoming chapter, we'll talk about the necessity of having good quality content, and you'll want to refer to this list again and again. Let's now take a moment to put together a plan to help you maintain momentum so that once you have started podcasting, you can consistently make good podcasts. Project 5, keep your podcast going. 1. Using the list you created in the previous exercise, select one of your favorite ideas to use here. 2. Using some of your ideas from the list above. Write down as many specific ideas as you can in a 5-minute period. Be as specific as possible. If you find that the 5 minutes went by too quickly and you could still keep writing, that's a good sign. If not, you may want to rethink using this idea, or hang on to it for a while and see if you can think of more content later. 3. With a highlighter or colored marker, connect similar ideas together. For example, if you are doing a podcast on dogs, you might find that you had a lot of ideas on beagles, a lot of ideas on bulldogs, and a lot of ideas on Yorkshire Terriers. Perhaps you can do one podcast on each type of dog, or you may find that, and you had a good variety of ideas, and you can group 2 or 3 of them together to switch up the format. 4. On a sheet of paper, group your ideas together. Since your paper is probably become unreadable, you now have a rough outline of some podcasts you can do. Remember, this is just an initial list, and we'll go into greater depth later. But now that we have this list of potential future podcasts, as well as a rough idea of the amount of time you want each podcast to go, and the amount of time you expect to spend on each podcast, you're much better prepared to maintain the momentum that is required of regular podcasting. As you analyze your list, you might have to make changes. Do you have too much material to only podcast once a quarter? Will you have enough material and time to podcast every day? If you only came up with 2 potential podcasts at the end of the exercise, and you were planning on doing a daily podcast, you may want to do more brainstorming or rethink the frequency of your podcast. We've talked a lot about technical details in this chapter, and more technical details will follow. Don't let those details distract you from what podcasting is all about: having fun. It's a great medium of self-expression, and it's a great opportunity for entrepreneurs. And it can be an enjoyable thing to do once you get used to it. So keep going and don't get frustrated. Do it now. For personal podcasters, 1. If you haven't already, get an aggregator like Doppler and sign up for some podcasts. 2. If you're planning on making your own podcasts, listen to a variety of podcasts to hear what kinds of content and markets are served. 3. Keep thinking about what kind of podcast you'd like make. You can start to refine your idea now, and in the next couple chapters, you'll be able to finish. Take it to the next level. Once you're comfortable with listening to podcasts and even making your own, some websites offer the chance to become a reviewer of podcasts. Nothing will help refine your own podcast as listening to many other podcasts and critiquing them. Just be careful, though. If you have your own podcast, you may end up on the receiving end of some criticism. Do it now. For business podcasters, 1. If you haven't already, get an aggregator like Doppler and sign up for some podcasts. 2. Sign up for podcasts in your industry, on general business of your competitors. 3. Set aside time in your schedule to keep on top of your podcasts, perhaps during lunch or just before you open your office for the day. This is an excellent way to learn because it is such a dynamic and interesting format. Take it to the next level. If you are an employee and not the owner of a business, you may want to approach the marketing department or the person in charge of the website and see if they are interested in posting your regular podcast on your company's website. You may have to sell the idea rather than just ask, by telling them of the benefits they will get by reaching more audience. As well, it will look good on you when it comes time for a promotion if you have been developing yourself into an industry expert. Wrap up. A summary. Podcasting is much easier to do than most people realize, and it's easier to podcast than it is to explain how to podcast. And once you've listened once, the process is automated enough to go back again and again. The same with podcasting. Once you've signed up, it's even easier to do the next time. Whether you are a hobby podcaster or a business looking to boost your bottom line with podcasting, you'll find that following the steps outlined above will help you to enjoy and evaluate podcasts out there and plan to develop your own excellent podcast. You'll want to create an excellent podcast that delivers good content. Before you start, though, you'll want to evaluate whether you can maintain the momentum. It's easy, but it does require some discipline to keep going. Watch your step. Podcasting can be fun to listen if you know where you're going. Be sure to have a plan when you podcast so that you don't spend the time rambling. You'll keep subscribers that way. The 3 things you need to know. 1. Listening to podcasts is very easy. Once you're set up, it's all automated. Just let the aggregator get your subscribed podcast and listen at your leisure. 2. Anyone with a mouth will be able to podcast, and there are enough podcasts out there to prove it. 3. Becoming a podcaster is easier than describing how to do it, and options are available if you want to take it to the next level. Stay tuned if you want to take your podcasting experience to the next level Check out the next section. We'll show you how you can take podcasts with you wherever you go so you'll never be bored waiting in line, or you can catch up on the latest news while you're out for a jog. And later, we'll show you how you can find more podcasts than you can possibly imagine in order to always find fresh, informative, and entertaining content. Podcasting software and equipment. Questions this chapter will answer. How do I listen to podcasts on the go? What are digital audio players? Who sells them? If I want to comparison shop, what should I know? What is RSS? What is an aggregator? Is it important for me to know these technical terms? What kind of equipment will I need to become a podcaster? What kind of equipment will I need to take my podcasting to the next level? What you need to know. Introduction to digital audio players. Digital audio players, DAP, are also commonly referred to as MP3 players, after one of the file formats they play. However, they usually play many kinds of files. While you can listen to podcasting on your computer, as we've learned above, you can use the programs we downloaded above to get podcasts, then sync them onto your digital audio player so you can listen to it on the go. DAPs are available in different styles, depending on what you want. Since new technology seems to change every day, the best solution to find a specific make and model suitable to you that won't be out of date by the time you read this is to go on some shopping comparison sites to check out current brands and their features. 3 types of digital audio players. Portable MP3 CD player. If you want to be able to listen to MP3s and CDs containing music or MP3 files, you can buy a portable MP3 CD player. A CD can hold several hours of MP3 music files, and these cost less than $200. If you want to listen to MP3s and don't require a lot of space, you can buy MP3 players that have a little bit of room in a storage device like a memory card. These are called flash-based digital audio players. Most of these players have up to 1 GB of storage space and cost between $50 and $200. If you listen to a lot of MP3s or really big files, you may need a larger hard drive-based digital audio player to store greater amounts of files for you. These are commonly called digital jukeboxes. They typically have 20 GBs of storage space or more and will generally run over $200. As you can see, there's a digital audio player for every taste and budget. Shop around on the internet and at an audio store, and you may find the one that is suitable for you. Companies are always coming out with different models and upgrades, so rather than reviewing specific models, we've simply included a list of some of the leading digital audio player manufacturers. This is not an exhaustive list, but simply a list of some of the key players in alphabetical order. MP3 format. If your computer does not have the capability to record and save an audio file as an MP3 file, and you want to do more than simply phone in your podcast, like you learned earlier, you can buy software at a local office supply store for as little as $10, which can get you started creating MP3 format audio files, which is the file format you'll need to record your podcast in to attach it to an RSS feed, which you'll learn about shortly. The software available comes in a range of prices, depending on the capabilities you want in it. Podcasting is increasing in popularity in such a rate that, if your computer does not currently allow you to create MP3 files, the computer you buy probably will. Aggregators. How a podcast gets to you. When you downloaded Doppler, which is an aggregator, you acquired the program that will allow you to subscribe to RSS feeds. Doppler will look for updated versions of those feeds regularly and download them to your computer when a new one has been posted. If you don't want to get bogged down in the technical details, think of it like this. Remember back to the beginning when we talked about your family fighting over who gets which section of the newspaper on Saturday morning. The Doppler program and an RSS feed is like if the newspaper company simply left your favorite section of the paper outside of their office, and you trained your dog to run there and pick it up and deliver it to you, so you don't have to even get out of bed in the morning. RSS. How a podcast is made available. Websites who want to make a podcast available to get noticed by an aggregator will post an RSS feed. RSS 2.0 allows a file to be attached, so a website with a podcast will attach it to their RSS feed, where it will be noticed by anyone with an aggregator and a subscription. RSS stands for Really Simple Syndication, and is just a file format that allows websites to make their information available to people who have subscribed. It doesn't have to be podcasts. It can be other kinds of information as well. But the MP3 format of a podcast, when attached to an RSS feed, is how podcasts are delivered. Example, think of it like this. Remember your amazingly trained dog that runs to the newspaper office to get your favorite section of the newspaper. How does the dog know which of the many sections of the newspaper that are bundled in boxes outside of the office is the section you want? After all, other members of your family have seen your great idea and trained their pets to do the same thing. Here's how. You've trained your dog to go to a specific box, the box with only your section of the newspaper, and when there's a new paper in the box, the dog will pick it up and bring it back to you. An RSS feed is like that box. There are several options for you to create RSS feeds for your MP3 audio files. If you are just starting out and interested in doing a regular podcast without a lot of expense or headache, then you'll probably want to stick with some of the free methods explored earlier. On the other hand, as you move towards becoming a professional podcaster, you'll probably want to pick up some of the software that can turn your work into a podcast and then make it available for the world to enjoy. In an upcoming chapter, you learn about sites that will automatically attach your MP3 format audio file to an RSS feed and host your podcast on their site for a small fee. Equipment for becoming a podcaster. As mentioned earlier, you can easily turn professional for very little upfront cost. There's no sense in getting an expensive microphone or high-end sound mixing equipment if you are simply podcasting for business or personal use on a regular basis. If, however, you are planning on going to the big leagues and want world-class podcasts, then you may want to look at Podcasting News has an excellent review of handheld microphones to help you make your decision. Links are available to click through and buy it if you like it. One of the best sound mixing programs on the market today is called SoundForge, and it is available through Sony. If you're looking for high-quality, no-holds-barred production, you'll want to consider SoundForge. As if that's not enough, this page on Podcasting News.com has a comprehensive list of some excellent podcasting-related products you'll need if you plan on podcasting with the big boys. Next, you'll need some sound mixing software that will allow you to create and edit your MP3. You can buy Mixcraft for about $40 or $50, and it gives you a wide range of features to allow you to create good quality podcasts. There is also a free trial available. You can find it at Acoustica. These tools should help you get started on the track to professional podcasting. All you need is a topic, a target audience, and a website to post your finished podcast. Later, we'll talk about top quality equipment for those who want to create a world-class sound. If that's you, read on. Otherwise, you'll probably make great quality podcasts with the equipment mentioned here. Setting up a studio. If you're planning on simply recording at home as a personal podcaster over the telephone, as you learned earlier, in your studio is simply your telephone and the script in your hand. Of course, you want to make sure that the dog isn't barking, the kids aren't screaming in the background, and the television is turned off. So a little bit out of attention is needed to make sure that your studio environment is ready to go. But essentially, all you need as a personal hobbyist podcaster is the ability to shut the door and pick up the phone. In fact, the beauty of this kind of podcasting is that you don't even need to be at home to podcast. So if you have a faithful and loyal following who want to hear what you have to say, you can still podcast if you are on vacation or away from home, because you just need to use the telephone. If you decide to become a little more advanced in the realm of podcasting, you can still create a small studio without a lot of expense. As we've seen, the software is still quite affordable, as is the equipment for a high-quality podcast. Perhaps you want to convert a room of your home or business into a podcasting studio, especially if you're going to have more than one host or guests. Since you cannot share a microphone, passing it back and forth between you and your guests, you'll need to buy more than one microphone, and you either need to buy software or an attachment for your telephone if you plan on recording a call-in show. If you are podcasting from a noisy environment, for example, if you own an auto body shop and you're podcasting from an office in the same building, you may be able to effectively deaden the sound by stapling foam pads to the walls around the room. This does not have to be very expensive, since foam is available at hardware stores and camping supply outfitters. If you are investing to create a world-class podcast, an authentic studio will cost you thousands of dollars in equipment and in creating a studio environment. But for 9% of the podcasters out there, a quiet office or one that is made quiet with foam should suffice. If you are dialing in for your 5-minute free podcast, or you are a small business looking to start podcasting, or you are an entrepreneur looking to make money from podcasting, all you will likely need is a quiet place to record. And if your basement is a quiet place, that might be appropriate for you. Or maybe it means going into work after everyone else is gone. Whatever the setup, there is no need to spend a lot of money to create a studio. As your podcasting becomes more serious, you can slowly move into a better equipped studio setting. Do it now. For personal podcasters, 1. Compare prices and features on an MP3 player. 2. When you found one that suits your needs, buy it and start downloading your favorite podcasts to listen at your convenience. 3. Once you're comfortable podcasting and you think you'd like to take the next step beyond the free 5-minute phone-in style podcast, check out some of the software available to create your podcasts. Take it to the next level. Find someone else in your area who is interested in podcasting and offer to work with them on creating a podcast. You will be able to share the workload and any expense you might incur while at the same time building off of each other's expertise. Do it now. For business podcasters, 1. Identify whether you can use an MP3 player for yourself to get information on your industry or for your employees to replace meetings, etc. 2. Determine the level you want to go for podcasting for your business. If you are satisfied with a good quality podcast at an affordable price, look into buying a USB microphone and some of the recommended software. 3. When podcasting, don't forget to keep your format interesting for your listeners and follow an order and a script so you maintain a professional sound. Take it to the next level. If you are going to create high-quality, world-class podcasts, that are the unrivaled epitome of what a podcast should be, you may want to check out some of the higher-end equipment. If you are not there yet but would like to be someday, stay on top of the software development industry so that when you're ready, you'll be an informed buyer. Wrap up. A summary. Buying a digital audio player is easy, especially once you've reviewed the features in each one. Find one that is suitable to you and use it to listen to your favorite podcasts while you're on the go. Watch your step. It's easy to spend a lot of money on technology that changes so rapidly. Don't worry about investing heavily until you are completely comfortable with podcasting and willing to stick with it for the long term. Podcasting can be a lot of work as you prepare regular scripts, so you want to make sure it's a challenge you're willing to accept on an ongoing basis. The 3 things you need to know. 1. Digital audio players let you take your podcasts off your computer and on the road. They become even more convenient by not tying you to sitting in front of your computer. 2. RSS is necessary for people who want to become podcasters, since that file allows them to attach an MP3 file to be picked up by an aggregator. 3. An aggregator, like Doppler, is necessary for people to subscribe to podcasts. Once they've subscribed, Doppler will download updated podcasts as regularly as they appear at the podcaster's website. Stay tuned. In the next section, we'll talk about finding all the podcasts you can possibly dream of in order to keep your brand new digital audio player alive with podcasts. And later, we'll show you how you can make money with podcasts. Listen now, quit your day job later. Podcast host sites. Questions this chapter will answer. What kind of sites are out there to find great podcasts? Are there sites out there that can help me podcast? Which ones are the good ones? Is there a way to tell other people about my podcast? How do I get someone to host my podcast? What if I don't want to buy software, like the kind that creates RSS feeds? What if I don't want the technical hassle, but just want to make a good podcast? What you need to know. Introduction. Once you're an old hand at listening to and creating podcasts, it's time to see about expanding your repertoire of what you can listen to and who will listen to yours. Check out these sites. They are excellent places to find podcasts on just about everything under the sun, and many of them have a place to submit a link for you to get your podcast heard. Once you've created a podcast and saved it in an MP3 format, what do you do with it? You need to get it attached to an RSS feed, which will give it a URL, and you need to tell the world about it and give them a place to find information about it, which requires another URL. Then you need to market either URL to the world. For ease of understanding, let simply their actions to these 3 things. Host your podcast, attach it to a RSS feed, and provide you with a URL so subscribers can download. Host your web page, which is like a cover page that will tell people about your podcast and give them the URL to subscribe to it. Market your podcast, tell the world about your podcast, and give them a chance to learn more about it and subscribe if they want. Some sites provide some or all of these services. Different sites provide you with varying levels of these services. Here is a general rule of thumb on how they work. Since these sites are born and disappear every day, and since many provide varying degrees of service, which changes over time, we cannot accurately review them. We can only provide you with the links to check out for yourself. Generally speaking, we have divided the sites into the following categories. Podcast hosting sites. Hosts. Podcast hosting sites. Marketers. The marketers can still be considered host sites, even though they don't actually keep your podcast on their server, since, in many cases, that's the only place you'll be putting your podcast RSS feed URL, so they become the only way for the world to learn about your podcast. So you'll want to find a host to put your podcast and a marketer to tell the world about it. Podcasting host sites. Podcast Pickle. This is an excellent site about podcasting, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. It claims to be the best on the internet, and it is probably a fairly accurate claim. It's definitely one of the best. Podcastolly. This site is very easy to navigate around and has tons of great podcasts to listen to. You will be hard-pressed to not find something here that interests you. The way it works is that you select a category, and it gives you all the podcasts in that category. Then you scroll through the titles and click on one to find a brief description of the podcast and an option to subscribe. Podcast Bunker. This site is well put together and provides a large list of podcasts. It also advertises itself as the home of the 30-second podcast preview. When you click on the name of the podcast, you are taken to another screen that tells you a bit about the podcast, as well as the frequency it is produced and the average length of the podcasts. This is great if you are looking to fill a specific length of time. The Podcast Network. This site is the first commercial podcasting site on the internet. It is quite pleasing to look at and has some good content, but doesn't seem to be as comprehensive as some of the other sites. Podcast. This site has a lot of promise as being a very comprehensive site. The only problem is that the pages under each subheading take too long to load, so if you're impatient, you'll probably go elsewhere. Also, the information given for each podcast is not very telling. All in all, good potential, but could be tweaked a bit better. Learn Out Loud. Learn Out Loud. Calm is a site that is working hard at becoming the premier place to hear audiobooks, podcasts, and any kind of audio media. While still in its infancy, it is slowly gathering resources to provide people with great media. They've selected some real winning podcasts. Podcast Host. This site was surprisingly impressive. It didn't seem to really boast at having a great selection of podcasts, but if you go to the directory, you'll be pleasantly surprised. Podbiz. This site will host your podcast for you. They charge a fee, but they will also automatically attach your podcast to an RSS feed. The site is simple and well laid out, and the fee is not that much. Podcaster Hosting. If you will sign up for this company and pay their fee, you can send your podcast to their site and enable the RSS feed, so that you don't have to have a program that does that for you. You'll still want to get your podcast hosted at other sites, but your podcast URL will point to this site. Blip Media. They have a very attractive site that allows you to create your own podcast, and you don't need a web page. They provide a profile page for you, and they host it for free on their site. It looks great, and this is a really good site for beginners. It seems to be a simpler version of the blog you created in a previous chapter. In fact, if you don't want to maintain a blog, this might be a better choice for you. Like the earlier site, you simply phone in your blog to them and they post it. Libsyn. Again, this is like a paid version of the blog you set up. Like most of the paid sites, you can send them your podcast and they will attach it to an RSS feed and either give you a blog or let you use your current site to host it. Doesn't look like they do a lot of marketing right now for you, but they give you a place to let your voice be heard. Audio Blog. This nice-looking site will sell you a blog and let you phone or download your podcast to them. They even support vidcasting as well. The price seems reasonable, and they appear to provide a lot of support. Our Media. This is a nicely designed site that lets you post your podcasts for free. They also support vidcasting. Like many of these sites, it's up to you to market it, but this looks like a nice place to park your podcast. Podlot. Another inexpensive place to host your website. For about $5/month, they will give you some space to put your podcast into an RSS feed. but it's a pretty bare-bones service. There's other sites that seem to do a little more for free. Still, if you're looking for simplicity and ease of use, this might be the place to go. EBOOK Matrix. This site will host your podcast and provide a podcatcher, like Doppler. Their site is free, but you can also pay to upgrade to other levels of service as well. Podblaze, another free site, well laid out. They offer quite a few features for the podcaster, but unlike the blogger site you signed up for a couple chapters ago, you don't have a phone in your podcast. You can use your computer's microphone. Slapcast, another free site. You phone your podcast in, like Blogger. But the site looks like it's still fairly new and underdeveloped. Sportpodcasts. If you like sports, this is the directory that will take you to podcasts on a wide variety, from auto racing to wrestling and everything in between. Also, it's surprisingly orange. Astratic. This collection of podcasts is focused on the stock market and financial industry. Podcast directory. If you can't find what you're looking for in some of the podcast sites above, check this site out. It is a very comprehensive collection of directories, and you are sure to find what you want here. Highlights of current podcasts. There are literally thousands of podcasts available right now. It is impossible to review even a good portion of them to give you an overview. What follows, though, is a selection of news, sports, business, and general interest to give you examples of very good podcasts of varying length and style that might interest just about anyone starting off in podcasting. CNN provides an excellent brief news podcast, The News Buff on the Go. It's short, but the lead story is comprehensively covered. Notice how they use headlines first, before launching into the main stories. 800 Seorid. This podcast doesn't have a dynamic title and is easy to skip over, but it is an excellent podcast that includes interviews with top CEOs. This podcast uses different formats, including the interview and the monologue and the hosted podcast to keep listeners interested. Good content. Hyped Traveler. This podcast talks about travel around Europe. It has two hosts, a guy and a girl, which make for a good overall sound. Stefan Live. Stephen Pierce is a speaker who hosts a podcast on making money. Entrepreneurs will really enjoy this podcast. There is good information, and it is a good example of a hosted podcast that is very popular right now. F1 Podcast. This podcast covers the world of Formula One racing. Race over to this site and get the URL for their podcast. This podcast shows that a niche market, like Formula Racing, gets one of the many racing niche podcasts out there today. Portable Media Expo. This is an excellent weekly podcast on podcasting. In fact, it's one of the best out there. It's very interesting and informative while still entertaining. If you are going to model your podcast after a well-done podcast, this is the one to use. Coffee Geek. If you love coffee as much as the rest of the world, then you'll love this podcast about all things coffee. Whether you're a coffee drinker or a coffee shop owner, this podcast offers something for everyone. Another example of a specific niche market served by a podcast. Tampa Bay. This site is a weekly podcast about playing poker. They talk about tips and strategies to improve your game. AF. If you are a member of the USAF or know someone who is, this is the podcast for you. It gives news and information about the Air Force and its people and programs. FAIR. This is the podcast of the Media Watch Group FAIR. They provide news and views that cast a sometimes more critical look at the news media industry and their coverage of events. You'll get current news reports with a different slant. Open Podcast. This is an interesting site for the budding podcaster who doesn't want to commit to doing a regular podcast, but would still like to podcast occasionally. This is an ongoing, open podcast that people can submit when they want, as if everyone in the world is part of one big podcast. It's an interesting concept, and there will undoubtedly be a wide range of material to hear. You can call or email your less than 5-minute podcast in, and it gets posted to the open podcast in just a few minutes. Pod quiz. This is an interesting idea. It's a weekly trivia show. There are rounds of questions, then music, then the answer. It's an interesting idea and shows that the world is open to any podcaster with an idea. Recoveripidcast. This is an interesting idea and an excellent use for podcasting. It's updated about once a week or so and gives news and information and support to people who are recovering from addiction. Arthritis Central. This weekly podcast talks about news and techniques on living with arthritis. They use a variety of formats, and it is hosted by a doctor. Dawn and Drew. This is one of the most popular podcasts on the internet. It is a daring, no-holds-barred podcast of frank discussion between a husband and wife team of ex-spunks. Listener discretion is advised. Who said, "This podcast is an interesting idea." It reads out a speech by a character in literature, and you have to guess who that character is. It's a short podcast and is updated every couple of days. Very entertaining for the book lover. Historipidcast. This podcast is a regular podcast delivered roughly every week. A little less or a little more on famous figures in history, such as the Mata Hari, Benedict Arnold, and Lady Godiva. Planetary Society. This weekly podcast interviews people who can give listeners insight into outer space. If you're interested in astronomy and what's beyond our planet, give this podcast a listen. As you can see, podcast topics and format vary greatly. If you've listened to some of them, you've probably noticed that the quality also varies as well. As you plan your podcast, select a couple podcasts who consistently produce good shows and mimic their format to develop a strong sense of what makes up a good podcast. Take action. Do it now. For personal podcasters. 1. Remember thinking about areas of interest you'd like to hear more podcasts about. Now's the time to check out podcasts at some of these sites. 2. Don't download the first one you see on your topic. There's probably more than one. Find a couple and choose the one you think will be of the most interest to you. 3. Keep thinking about doing your own podcast. In the next chapter, we'll be looking at what you might want to include in your podcast and how you go about selecting an audience. Take it to the next level. If you're looking for a great gift for someone for a birthday or Christmas, buy an inexpensive MP3 player and download some podcasts in areas they might be interested in. The gift will be affordable and personalized, and it will continue to be helpful to them for years to come. Do it now. For business podcasters, have you already identified 3 areas of your business that you'd like to improve upon? If not, do so now. Next, go out and find podcasts on those areas. Here are some ideas. Perhaps you're looking to improve your online marketing, your networking skills, as well as your general industry knowledge. Don't select the first podcast you find that looks like it may apply to your situation. Instead, check out several and select the best one. Keep thinking about the area you'd like to do some of your own podcasting in, because in the next chapter, we'll be looking at what your podcast should contain as well as what markets you should be serving. Take it to the next level. If you have employees, ask them to listen to podcasts on your industry. Buy them a podcast and subscribe them to an industry-related podcast at work. Or, if you can find a short podcast, include it in your weekly sales meeting as a way to kickstart the meeting with fresh, free, outside content. Wrap up. A summary. Bookmark these sites, and you'll find that you'll never be at a loss for good podcasts to listen to. There are other sites out there, but these are the biggest and the best. And we've given you an interesting sampling of what's available. Don't get overwhelmed. Just find a few that you enjoy. Watch your step. Television, email, and the internet have let the world come to us. But they are also great time wasters. It's easy to spend hours browsing the internet or getting caught up in an instant messaging conversation with someone and have time slip through your fingers. It's exactly the same with listening to podcasts. They're a great way to be entertained and informed, but they can be time eaters as well if you're not careful. Take control of technology. Don't let it take control of you. The 3 things you need to know. 1. There are many podcast host sites out there, so you should be able to find a podcast you're interested in listening to. Or 10. 2. Marketing your podcast requires some work on your part, and getting it hosted should be one of the ways to get it heard. 3. Submitting your podcast to host sites is easy to do. Stay tuned. In the next section, we'll talk about how you can tweak your podcast to help improve your program and gain an audience. And after that, we'll show you everything you've wanted to know about earning an income from podcasting. It's easier than you think. Content and niche markets. Questions this chapter will answer. How can I create good podcasts? How can I improve my podcast so that it will be of higher quality? What kinds of things do professional podcasters do? Can you help me to develop a good format? How can I find an audience to hear my podcast? Can you help me determine who might want to listen? How can I keep my audience coming back to hear more podcasts? How can I find enough information to sustain podcasting on a regular basis? What you need to know. Introduction. If you were online when the internet made the move from being an advanced and specialized technology to become a popular medium for the regular public, you'll probably remember the early days of websites. It seemed like everybody who was anybody was trying desperately to put websites on the internet. You may remember, compared to today, these websites really lacked in value. It was a new age, and people did not know what to do with the internet. They just knew it was going to be a big thing, and they needed to be a part of it. So a website simply became a page about a company, along with a phone number to call if you wanted to buy their product. Fast forward to today, and you'll immediately see the development of websites from simply a cover page about the company to an interactive and informative site where you can do your questions answered by products and find financial and shareholder information. Podcasting is still in its early days. People are still trying to figure out what they can put on podcasts and if people will listen to it. Content and audience will be the determining factors on who is still around 5 or 10 years from now when podcasting reaches its maturity. Ever heard of the game Pong? If not, ask someone who is a little older than you to tell you about it. After Pong came early game systems like Atari with Pac-Man characters running from ghosts. Game systems have advanced so far in only a few decades. Podcasting is like that too. Web radio is like the Pong of internet audiotainment. Podcasting is like the early Atari system. It won't be long, and we'll be looking back and laughing at how primitive podcasting is. Content is king. If you're just looking to find a podcast that meets your interests, check out many of the sites available. If you do not find what you're looking for, do not despair. It won't be long before someone will create a podcast for your interest. Just keep looking or create one yourself. Chances are, others are looking for that same niche as well. If you're interested in podcasting, check to see what's out there now. Some interests lend themselves to podcasting more easily than others, while others may not seem so readily transferable into a podcasting format. When creating your podcast, make sure that it contains quality content. Just like a bad television show, a podcast with little to say will find that it fades out of existence as its discontented audience trickles away. Would you eat a sandwich with nothing between the bread? Would you read a newspaper that only had blank pages? When was the last time you watched that all-static channel on TV? These are silly examples, but podcasting is in its infancy, and people tend to put anything on a podcast. If you want a podcast that will be around for a while, make sure you're offering a sandwich, which is more than just 2 slices of bread. In the next few subsections, you will see ways to create high-quality, high-content podcasts that will make people want to come back again and again to hear what you have to say. Formats of a podcast. Podcasting can take many formats, just like a television show or radio program. In fact, since podcasting is so new and people are willing to experiment with different kinds of formats, you are likely to get away with formats that will not be considered acceptable in a television or radio program. The interview show. In each podcast, you interview one or several experts in the niche you serve. The call-in show. In this format, people phone in and you talk to them. This works well in any problem diagnosis situation, where people ask you for help with their garden or their car or their computer, and you give advice to them, but it is practical enough advice that all of your listeners will find value in it. The monologue. In this format, you simply tell people your ideas, just as if you were a professor in a college lecturing your students or a storyteller with a rapt audience. If you have something interesting to say and you are a good speaker, this format can work well, especially since podcasting is the only medium that will allow you to do this. But be careful, because it can become boring very, very quickly. The dialogue. This format is much more enjoyable to listen to, even though you can accomplish the same thing in this format as you can in the monologue. Get your ideas across to your listeners. The only difference is 2 or more people are talking about it, and the different invoices will help break up the format, and may even allow for a question-and-answer style discussion or a debate with one person on one side of the issue and the other person on the other side of the issue. The conversation. This is a little less formal than the dialogue above and a lot more freeform. There are some great podcasts out there of just conversation-style shows, but they are difficult to maintain quality content without a script. Podcast version of seminar/convention. This format is somewhat difficult to listen to, although if your industry has a convention that you cannot make it to, this is the next best thing. When the speaker of the seminar speaks into the microphone, it is also transferred into an MP3 format and then made available for you to download. If the seminar requires a lot of visuals, the podcast can be very boring, but it's the best option if you can't make it. This quiz show. This is an interesting format, and it can be done in a couple ways. Some podcasts ask questions, pause for some music while you think of the answer, then reveal the answer. News magazine format. News channels like CNN are putting their headlines into podcast form, like a television or radio broadcast. They simply list off the headlines, then have a feature story or 2, followed by a few smaller stories. It's a good way to catch the news if you're on the go and want quality news from a respected national news source, rather than local news from your radio station. Of course, there are many other formats, but these are often the most popular. If you're creating a podcast, you'll probably want to use these formats in a combination to provide the very best value to your listeners. Sample podcast format. For example, here's a typical format of some current, excellent podcasts available right now. 1. Introductory music. 2. Introduction of hosts. 3. Hosts introduce topics covered on the podcast with the catchy title and a 1-sentence teaser, like a table of contents for the podcast. 4. The first topic. The hosts review industry-related news. 5. The second topic, someone calls in with a problem, and the hosts make suggestions to solve the problem. 6. The third topic, the hosts review a couple of websites or industry-related books. 7. There is a brief pause for an advertisement. 8. The fourth topic, the longest in a feature format, an industry expert is interviewed. 9. Question and answer between hosts and guests. 10. The hosts mention an upcoming seminar they are offering. 11. The hosts talk about the next podcast coming up and what listeners can look forward to. 12. Concluding music. Not every podcast has to follow this format, and you'll find podcasts that vary in quality and quantity of content. But this example, above, is a sample outline drawn from a conglomeration of good quality podcasts currently available. The secrets to successful podcasts. If you're planning on podcasting, here are a few tips to help you create a high-quality podcasts. They do not cost anything, and they are easy to implement, so they should be added to your podcast in order to help you create a quality product that people will want to subscribe to. Have a script, but don't read from it. Listeners can tell both ways. If you are just flying from the seat of your pants, or all you do is speak like this all the way through your podcast. Both ways can be annoying. Put a little bit of music or a related sound at the beginning and end of your podcast, like parentheses. These just give the listener with audible cues that your podcast is starting and finishing. Host a podcast, rather than simply letting it be a sounding board of one person renting on and on. The differences in voices will make for a more enjoyable experience for your listener. Give headlines at the beginning of your podcast. Tell listeners to expect to hear these 3 things. Number 1, number 2, number 3. That way, they can follow along more easily. Add value. Podcasts can be a good way to make money, which we will talk about in detail later. But people will only be drawn to them if they actually add value to their lives. Don't use your podcast as a vehicle to only move product, or you will find you only need to make one podcast because no one will listen to anymore. Remember that podcasting is an audio format. There are many podcasts out there today that are simply recordings of seminars or trade shows or product unveilings that require in order to succeed. Learn to speak clearly. Either hire a professional to help you or join a group like Toastmasters whose purpose is to help you speak more clearly. There are too many podcasts today whose speakers have not tried to improve their ability to be understood. And these podcasts will not be around for very much longer. Be excited about your topic. Whether you are new to podcasting or a veteran, this list will help improve your listeners' experience. Niche markets, the secret to successful podcasting and to the future success of the industry lies in podcasting's ability to service a niche market. Most people can find general information readily available quickly. What people want is in-depth information, instruction, and entertainment specific to their area of interest. It is easy for them to find a website that will post all the baseball scores in their favorite division. What they might be looking for, however, is information, instruction, and entertainment related to their baseball team, which might not be readily available at the click of a mouse. People who want to find out more about the industry do not want to scour the internet for a couple hours each day looking for analysis and information and top experts. Podcasting brings all of that to them. What niche markets can you serve? If you are looking to break into the podcasting world but are not sure what to podcast about, this might be the place to start. Don't worry right now about advertising. Just look for a niche markets to serve. The farther you drill down into the niche, the better chance you have of getting your podcast heard. So rather than podcasting on cars or books, drill down further. Let's say you're a car enthusiast or a book enthusiast. Here are a couple examples of drilling down to become more specific on your area of interest. Marketing your podcast. So here you are. You have developed a great podcast with excellent content for a very tight niche, and you are prepared to podcast on this topic with top-notch content for a long time to come. Now what? Now you have to get your podcast out into the world to be heard. Many broadcasters to simply podcast for personal interest or to get their opinions out into the world don't bother to market their podcast. And perhaps, if you have a small and faithful following, that might be all you're interested in. For example, maybe you are pastor at a church, and it doesn't matter to you other people outside of your congregation hear your podcasts, as long as they are available for your parishioners. That's fine, but there are many people, especially business podcasters, who need to be heard. Perhaps you need to be heard because of the importance of sell your product and put food on the table. Whatever the reason is, you need to do your podcast out there. The first thing you want to do is submit your podcast to the podcast hosting sites mentioned in a previous chapter. If you haven't done that already, take time to be that right away. Don't just submit to one, submit to all of them. The next thing you need to do is to make sure that your marketing material, if you are a business, contains the website on which your podcast is hosted. For example, if your company has a website, make sure it's on your marketing material. Then go on to your company's website and make sure that the podcast is easy to see. Lots of companies have very busy websites, which makes it difficult to notice if there are new items on the page. You might also want to put on your marketing material something along the lines that of subscribe to our podcast. Just plunking down your podcast on your website and a web address on your marketing material will not get you very many subscribers. It could get some and that's great. But just like any other product that you sell, you need to give people a reason to subscribe to your podcast. If you haven't noticed, this chapter talks about content and niche marketing, but the underlying secret of both of those is value. When you offer a value, people will come to you. If your product solves a problem, they will buy it from you. If your service benefits someone, they will buy it from you. If your podcast helps them in some way, they will subscribe to it or even buy it from you. So how do you make your podcast provide value? This chapter and previous chapters give lots of ideas to help provide value. People are looking for interesting and engaging entertainment, information, and instruction to listen to at their convenience. That's what podcasting is all about. Those three things: 1. Interest and engagement. Is the format varied and easy to listen to? 2. Entertainment, information, instruction. Is the content of high quality? 3. Convenience. Is it an appropriate length and updated with appropriate frequency? That is the best test to ensure that your podcast provides value. If it does not to fulfill all three things, then you'll find your subscribership will diminish over time. Here is another exercise that will help you determine your value to your subscribers. If you have spent any time in sales or as an entrepreneur, you'll probably already familiar with this. But it is a good exercise to do nonetheless, since it is often overlooked in the podcasting industry. Project 6. Features and benefits of your podcast. 1. One side of a piece of paper. List the features of your podcast. Leave plenty of lines under each feature. What are features? The topic is a feature. The length is a feature. The frequency you updated is a feature. It's a feature if 2 people host the show. The format can be a feature, and your variety and quality of content is a feature. 2. On the other side of the paper, list the benefits. what it is about those features that subscribers will find helpful. For example, CNN provides very short podcasts of excellence depth. Those are features. The benefits are that the listener will save time and become well-informed. 3. Determine if there is one or two of those benefits that set you apart from other podcasts in a similar category. For example, perhaps you can provide the same depth of coverage on a sports team as another podcast, but you can do it with greater frequency or with more expert analysis. Of course, those of the features, but the benefits are that your subscriber can save time and increased knowledge by become better informed more frequently. 4. Now promote those benefits. This is a classic feature / benefits exercise from Sales Training 101. It is often overlooked in podcasting because podcasting is such a personal medium, and it's brand new, so people are pushing the boundaries in spite of the lack of benefits to their listeners. Pushing the boundaries is okay if that's what you want to do, but if your interest is in gaining subscribers or in making money from podcasting, then you'll want to discover the benefits of your podcast and promote them. If you can drive people to your website, you might be able to post a couple benefits beside your podcast link. Or, if your marketing material has enough room, you can put those benefits right under your heading, "Subscribe to our podcast." You might also find that, although they may appreciate the benefits and value that you provide, they may be scared off by how technologically advanced it seems to them. Rather than calling it a podcast, you may want to call it an online audio program or an internet radio show. It may not be exactly accurate, but it's a lot easier than telling people that it's a podcast and spending half an hour explaining it to them and telling them why they don't need an iPod to hear you. You may also want to pay other people to host affiliate advertising to send an end to your site if you are creating a podcast for people to pay to listen to. These concepts are covered in a little greater detail in the next chapter, but it is appropriate to mention them here as something else to think about in marketing your podcast. The best form of advertising for any kind of business is word-of-mouth advertising. He can get your search drivers to be your biggest supporters and talk about you all the time to their friends. You won't have any problem getting subscribers. How do you do that? You should be able to answer this in your sleep by now. Content, niche markets, benefits. It is still very early in the industry, but it won't be long before you see referral marketing programs that give subscribers some kind of discount or freebie for getting other people to subscribe to a podcast. With a little creativity, you may be able to start doing this right now. Getting subscribers is all about providing value. If people see the value, they will subscribe. Tell them about your program, tell them what the value is to them, and tell them how to subscribe, and tell them to get their friends to subscribe. And you should not have any problem building up a big list of subscribers. And with this audience, you'll be able to get your views heard and maybe even make some money. Take action. Do it now. For personal podcasters. 1. You've seen what's out there, and you've heard it too. You've made your own podcast. Now it's time to get serious. Join the revolution and make a permanent mark on the world. What do you want to podcast? 2. Plan your podcast. 3. Podcast it. 4. Submit your podcasts to directories. 5. Don't stop podcasting. Take it to the next level. Cut your niche in half. You may be surprised to pick up more listeners. For example, if you do a podcast on wine tasting, make it a podcast on wine tasting for women. Cutting your niche in half does not necessarily mean fewer listeners, because by narrowly defining your content, your potential subscribers will more easily be able to say, "Hey, that's me." Do it now. For business podcaster. 1. Now that you've spent some time listening to podcasts that are out there, What would be some good podcast content and formats suitable to build your business? 2. Do some research to see what else is out there. 3. Talk to someone who is already doing a podcast in a related field. Ask them about the time factor of producing regular podcasts. Podcasts are only valuable if they drive business to you, not take you away from running your business. 4. Select a topic and ask people what they think of the idea. 5. Put together a thumbnail plan for a year's worth of podcasts. It seems like a lot of work now, but you'll be glad you did. Do you have enough material to sustain your interest and your listeners' interest, or do you have to publish less frequently? 6. Can you get analysts and experts to provide you with advice and material and interviews? 7. Once you've done these steps, then consider podcasting on an ongoing basis. Take it to the next level. Many business books talk about the unique selling proposition you have. That is your competitive advantage. The reason people might choose your business over someone else's business. If you are having trouble developing your niche and your content, consider what your competitive advantage is, and you'll likely find a clue there. For example, if delivering the fastest oil change in the country is your competitive advantage, maybe your podcast could be on the industry of oil changes, and specifically on tools and techniques to help the rapid oil change shops in metropolitan areas thrive. Wrap up. Summary. Creating high-quality content for your niche market is the only way that you'll gain and keep subscribers. With so much podcast content already available, you'll need to really drill down to find a niche market that does not currently have a good podcast. And to keep others from stealing your subscribers, you'll have to continually provide high-quality content. Once you've discovered your niche market and are preparing high-quality content for them, you'll want to market your podcast by telling people about how your podcast will benefit them. Watch your step. It's okay to have a soapbox to speak your mind, but if you don't have a lot of substance, you're not going to have a lot of subscribers. People don't mind listening to rants and opinion, even if it conflicts with their own thinking on issues. But be sure that your content is of a quality that will engage your listeners, or else you soon won't have any listeners to engage. The 3 things you need to know. 1. Content will determine if your podcast will be around next year or not, since no one wants to spend their valuable time listening to a podcast that doesn't offer them anything. 2. Format your podcast so that it entertains while it informs by changing formats and speakers. This way, you won't put your subscriber to sleep. 3. The niche market is the way to cut through all the podcasts are there already and become the leading podcaster in your specialty. Select a niche that is underserved and create the best possible podcast for it. Stay tuned. In the next section, you'll learn about 10 ways that you can make money from podcasting. You can do some of these while you work at your day job, or you can quit your job and do all of them. It's up to you. 10 ways to make money podcasting. Questions this chapter will answer. How can I earn money podcasting? What ideas are there to earn money by podcasting? Does it cost anything to get involved in making money with podcasting? Do other people earn money from podcasting? I already have a job. Can I just earn some extra money on the side? Can I use podcasting to help me get a promotion? How do I become a professional podcaster? How do I use podcasting to make more money for my existing business? What you need to know. Introduction. More than ever, the internet has allowed people to become entrepreneurs. If you already own your own business, podcasting is an excellent way to boost business. If you do not already own your own business and are looking for a way to become an entrepreneur, there are many ways you can do so. Following are 10 ways to make money by becoming a podcaster. Money-making tip 1. Advertising. On radio, television, newspapers, or the internet, Advertising is the mainstay of marketing. Companies will pay to have their name and slash or product included in the program. Radio and television first started advertising by having the show brought to you by, and by inserting commercials into their programming. Newspapers and the internet have placed advertising all around their medium in banners or classifieds or display ads. Even text-based e-newsletters delivered to your email account usually have at least one advertiser buried in the text. If you become a podcaster, you may want to consider advertising as a way to make money on your podcast. This can be done in a couple of different ways. 1. Your program can be brought to you by the product you're being paid to advertise. 2. You can mention the advertised product or company part way through, kind of like a mini commercial, or you might say, let's pause for a brief word from our sponsor before launching into an advertisement. 3. Or, like modern television advertising, you can embed advertising inside your highly informative podcast by providing good quality programming to the listener while casually mentioning a specific product or company. This has to be done very carefully, but it is quickly becoming the new form of advertising on television. For example, in response to an interview format question from a listener who has a problem, you might say, "I had that problem too, and I tried using XYZ product and found it solved the problem." Advertising has long been the way marketers have moved their product or raised consumer awareness for the company. As consumers become more savvy, however, advertising has had to become higher quality or less obvious in order to be successful. If you offer free podcasts, people will probably understand if you include advertising in your podcast, but make sure it's not too rampant or else the perceived value of your podcast will be lost. An infomercial is an hour-long commercial, while popular sitcom Friends had a commercial-free episode with embedded advertising. Which would you rather watch? Advertising is a necessity, but consumers get tired of it easily since we face so much of it every day. You may also face a challenge as you look for advertisers for a couple of reasons. First, podcasts are available to people all over the world, so a local company with one store in your town might not be interested in paying for advertising that will be heard by people on the other side of the world. Second, podcasting is such a fledgling industry that advertisers may be reluctant to pay good money for something they don't understand. To overcome these obstacles, you need to make sure that your podcast has value, and you'll probably be more successful finding an advertiser if your podcast has a niche market it serves. That way, if you were podcasting on the latest in horse racing, you are probably going to have a better time finding an advertiser than if you are simply podcasting about animals in general. When marketing your podcast to advertisers, develop a very quick explanation of what a podcast is, then tell them what your podcast does and how many listeners it reaches. And most importantly, tell them the benefit they will receive from advertising with you. Money-making tip #2, direct marketing. Another opportunity to make money is to offer podcasts that directly market your product. For example, General Motors offers podcasts that talk about specific makes and models of vehicles. This type of podcast is good for manufacturers who have specific products that they sell. This can be done in a couple of different ways. 1. At the end of your podcast, mention the product just like you might advertise in a commercial form for another advertiser. 2. Spend your entire podcast talking about the product. This is particularly good if your product is easy to describe and talk about. If your product is a little more difficult for people to visualize in their minds, you might have a harder time accomplishing this. You might also have a tough time getting listeners to listen to this kind of podcast if it does not offer them real value. This money-making tip is very similar to the advertising tip above, except that its focus is on letting you advertise your own product or service. You might want to think of it just like being at a seminar, where the seminar leader provides the seminar, and then mentions at the end of the seminar that additional books and tapes are available for people that want to purchase them. Again, the secret to getting listeners is to provide good value to a specific niche. You may have a hard time getting listeners with a podcast that is an hour of commercial. You'll probably have more success providing value while mentioning your product or service. Money-making tip #3, indirect marketing. What we have called direct marketing is basically advertising your own products or services in a podcast in the same way you might advertise for someone else. What we are calling indirect marketing is an increasingly popular way of doing business, and that is this: do not advertise at all. At first, this might seem like an unusual idea, but since consumers are inundated with advertising, they have become savvy at identifying it and sometimes being repelled by it. Please note, there's nothing wrong with advertising, but it surrounds us all day long, and people are desperate to find good information that does not contain advertising or have ulterior motives. Aware of this, many companies are moving to a format that has been espoused by service providers for decades. That idea is to simply provide value to people through good information, which establishes you as an expert in the field without actually promoting a product. People will turn to your podcast for information. Be thankful that it does not have huge amounts of commercials in advertising and product placement in it. And then they will turn to you when they need to make purchases because you're the expert in the field. To do this well, you'll need to have your website set up so that people can easily see your podcast, but can also get to your products if they want. During your podcast, you'll probably want to adopt a format of one who advises or interviews industry experts or analyzes and compares, as these formats will lend themselves to people looking to you for advice. And when you set yourself up as the expert, they will turn to you for products or services when they need them down the road, even though you never advertised in the first place. Money-making tip 4, affiliate programs. Affiliate programs are another way to make money on podcasts. In a way, they are combinations of some of the above-mentioned money-making tips. But instead of getting paid by an advertiser to advertise, you're getting paid when the product is sold. With traditional affiliate advertising programs, you may put affiliate links in your website so that customers can link to another site from yours and buy a product, and you get paid for it. Affiliate marketing with podcasts is similar, but is still an unrefined and undeveloped area of the industry. Affiliate programs are like commission-based programs. It's like making a deal with the store owner that every time you send a customer to his or her store, the store owner will have to pay you a bit of money. The internet version of this is pay-per-click, or perhaps the store owner will pay you a small percentage of sales. The internet version of this is pay-per-sale. You have a couple options with affiliate advertising. You can mention the product in an advertisement, like money-making tip #1, or you can drive people to your website by mentioning it in your podcast and tell them that they can find more information on a specific product there, like money-making tip #2. In the future, we'll probably see this area developed further. Perhaps advertisers will offer listeners a code they can hear then input, like an audio coupon, or perhaps as audio and video podcasting and wireless internet becomes more refined, People may be able to somehow link to an advertiser's website in the middle of podcast. Money-making tip #5, paid listening. Podcasting is so new that people are trying to find new ways to use it. Early podcasts were free as people simply saw it as a way to share their views with the world. Or companies used it as a way to offer value through marketing. As the world of podcasting developed, podcasters saw that people were willing to pay for music to their MP3 player. So they asked themselves, why wouldn't they be interested in paying for information on the go as well? And so the podcast version of pay-per-view was born. When you look at the PPV available on cable and satellite television, you see that they are specialty channels that are specifically targeted to a niche market. For example, not just the sports channel, but a channel only about basketball, or a channel for military enthusiasts, or a channel for hip-hop music lovers. The secret here, again, is the niche market. While not all markets will want to pay to hear podcasts, some markets will pay top dollar to hear top experts speak about their industry. For example, you might be a financial advisor with some ideas about the stock market. You'll probably have to offer a podcast for free. However, if you are a top financial expert and your accurate analysis is sought after by everyone, you're probably more likely able to sell your analysis as a podcast. If you do not possess the industry expertise, like that mentioned above, you might be able to post a podcast that brings on experts for listeners to hear. And that way, you will still be able to provide a specialty niche market with top quality information. When you have found the niche market that you want to service, set up a place on your website for people who are interested in buying a subscription to your podcast to pay you. In coming years, this will be the biggest area of growth in podcasting. Get in on the bottom floor and get established as the leading expert in your area of interest. Once you have success in becoming the expert, then you may want to consider branching out into other products and finding advertisers. Money-making tip 6, pod seminars. Money-making tip #5 talked about pay-per-listen podcasts that you would do on a regular basis, like a subscription to an audio magazine or specialty channel on cable television. Money-making tip #6 deals more with one-off podcasts that are more instructional than informational. Think of these as seminars that people don't have to go to. You've probably seen advertising for seminars in your hometown on everything from network marketing to marriage improvement. These are very successful because they help establish the person delivering the seminar as an expert in the field. They make money when seats are filled, and they make money on the back end by selling products like books and CDs. But not everyone goes to these seminars who wants to. Perhaps they are too expensive or conflict with work schedules, or perhaps the content is too personal for people, like the marriage improvement seminar. By creating pod seminars, you're making seminars accessible to people who may not be able to afford to go in person or who don't have the time to go. Like money-making tip #5, this area of podcasting is ready to take off. Strap yourself in and get ready for the ride by developing a high-quality instructional seminar in podcast format. Money-making tip 7, ancillary service. Perhaps you already have a business or an idea for a business and are trying to find a way to increase users. It is already being done in some historical sites and museums and might be an excellent addition for your business as well. Most companies offer ancillary services of some kind. Theaters sell popcorn. Electronic firms sell extended warranties. Rental car companies sell extra insurance. Furniture retailers ask if you want to buy the leather care set. Clothing stores offer you a pair of socks and belt for just a few dollars more. Fast food restaurants offer to supersize your meal. Ancillary products or services often have higher profit margins than the product being sold. At some places, like a historical site, people pay an admission fee, get a map, and are free to walk the grounds at their leisure. For a couple dollars more, they get to rent an MP3 player that takes them through on a walking tour that corresponds to the map they received. The first track might take them from the entrance gate to the first site of interest, mentioning things to watch for along the way. The second track might be about a particular place of interest, describing it in greater detail while the person stands there observing. Then the third track might be the description of things to watch out for as they walk to the next place of interest. Maybe you don't own a museum or an art gallery, but offering this ancillary service is not out of the question for you. Here are some further ideas as a springboard to help you think of ways to make money through this method of podcasting. If you live in a town that gets visited by a lot of tourists, you may want to create a podcast of a walking tour or a bicycle tour and rent out MP3 players with these podcasts downloaded on them to go along with maps you sell or bicycles you rent. If you sell instructional books or software on translation, you may want to also sell a podcast on some of the most basic words and phrases your customer might need to know, so they can take their MP3 player with them while they are traveling. If you market cookbooks, you may want to sell podcasts that offer a radio show-style step-by-step instruction on some of the more popular dishes in your book. To encourage sales, a book publisher might create a podcast of a book's alternate ending, so that the people who buy the original book can read a different version. If you rent cars, you might sell podcasts of common destinations around town, including hotels and restaurants and sights to see. An ancillary service is a service that allows you to charge extra over above your regular service. A podcast to sell as an ancillary service needs to provide good value to the user and needs to be additional value that they would not get by purchasing the regular service. Money-making tip 8. Freelance podcaster. If the idea of making money podcasting really appeals to you, but you don't want to get involved in the administration side of operating your own business, you can become a freelance podcaster. This means that you can buy freelance podcasting equipment, perhaps even portable podcast recording equipment, which is readily available, and advertise your services to people who want to podcast, but do not have the time or technical inclination to do so themselves. Businesses who want to create a podcast on a quarterly basis might not feel that it is worth the money to hire or train someone to podcast, so you can rent out your services to them on a regular basis. Alternatively, maybe a company wants to create a podcast as an instructional book or owner's manual, so they are looking for a one-off podcast. Or perhaps a company is too small to have someone operate the retail side of the store and create a regular podcast at the same time. In all circumstances, a freelance podcaster might be able to market their services and make a living. The challenge a freelance podcaster faces is an understanding in the marketplace of what a podcast is. It is such a fledgling industry that many people have not heard of it before, so they will be reluctant to try it. However, if you can find a few people who are willing to hire you to podcast for them and build up a reputation as a freelance podcaster, you'll stand to make big profits as podcasting explodes. Market your freelance podcasting service as a specialized niche audio program they can offer to any customer with a computer. Create a couple of free podcasts to use as samples. You also have some freedom to offer different service packages, including a package where you host the podcast yourself and interview the person who is hiring you, or a self-hosting package where the person is basically buying your expertise, but will be sitting in front of the microphone themselves. Or, if someone is already podcasting from their own equipment, you may want to provide an editing and post-production sound mixing service. Money-making tip 9, audio support. As we learned earlier, podcasts vary in their format, which often means that podcasts will vary in their quality. A well-formatted podcast is more enjoyable to listen to, which will mean more listeners will subscribe. Podcasters need several things in order to be successful, even if they don't know they need them. Here is where you can offer a service for people who are already podcasting. Develop scripts or format templates to help people who are just sitting in front of their microphone rambling. Show them how some direction, even if it is not word for word, will help improve their podcast. Podcasters need royalty-free music to play at the beginning and end of their podcast, or between segments. If you play an instrument, you can create and sell small jingles that are only a couple seconds long, but are necessary for podcasters to create a high-quality production. Sometimes podcasters need sound effects, but are limited by what they can do themselves. For example, maybe they need the sound of a ringing phone or the squealing tires of a car, but can't record those sounds themselves in a high-quality way. You can have a lot of fun thinking up sounds people need, and recording them, then selling them. Money-making tip 10, get creative. This is still a fledgling industry, and there is so much unexplored territory. You can be sure that the inventor of the car, the phone, or the computer had no idea the extent of income-generating applications available to the modern user when they first invented it. Here are a couple extra ideas to get you thinking. If you're a writer or publisher and you have a book to market, consider podcasting a couple teaser chapters and providing a link to buy your book. A television producer creates a podcast about the show he's producing, so people get a behind-the-scenes look at the show's development. Can you offer a behind-the-scenes look at what you do? Can you package and sell other people's podcasts, with their permission, of course, in a related and coherent package? For example, can you find podcasts from different people describing different cars and sell them individually to consumers who can listen to a podcast as they try out each car? Getting creative will help you make money. These are just a few ideas to get you thinking about the opportunities that are out there. What will tomorrow bring? This list may seem comprehensive right now, but it won't be long, and this list of 10 ways to make money podcasting will need to be updated to the 25 ways to make money podcasting. Then, the 100 ways to make money podcasting. As new technologies and new ideas are developed, new ways of combining them and integrating them will be developed as well. And now that you know about podcasting, you'll be better prepared to take advantage of those new developments and make big dollars. Take action. Useful sites. Do it now. For personal podcasters. 1. If you've already set up your blog and a regular podcast, you can select some of the ideas above and start implementing them right away. Particularly, you may want to consider affiliate programs through Google's AdSense, which you can even put on your blog page if you signed up at Blogger.com. 2. Now, even if you're gainfully employed elsewhere, wouldn't it be great to make a little extra cash by starting a podcasting business on the side? Start thinking about ways to create and service an underserviced niche market with a high-quality podcast. Who knows, maybe it will springboard into a full-time career. Take it to the next level. The next level from above is to simply quit your job and start podcasting. Some people are bold enough to make that step, and no one ever made significant changes and improvements without taking significant risks. Be smart about it. Create a business plan Talk to some current podcasters who are doing just that, and keep your current free podcast going to make sure you can sustain the level of work needed on an ongoing basis. Do it now. For business podcasters, if you run an existing business, you've likely been able to come up with dozens of ideas to integrate into your current business. 1. Decide how you can use podcasting for your business. 2. Determine your audience and the format you need. 3. Develop a script for your podcast to help you sound professional. 4. Create high-quality podcasts to promote your business or as an ancillary product. If you're checking out your options to start a new podcasting company, you might have a couple solid ideas to take to the next level. 1. Select a business idea from one of the 10 ways to make money podcasting. 2. Determine your audience and the format you are going to use. 3. Develop a script. Sign up at Premium Podcasting to sell your podcast to the public. 5. Create high-quality podcasts to sell. Take it to the next level. Some people make a very good living by starting companies, making them profitable, and selling them for a good price. Traditional bricks-and-mortar companies have been started that way for years. Online stores have been developed like that by professional startup entrepreneurs. Why not podcasting companies as well? If you love the thrill and stress of starting up businesses, and you think you can handle turning over the reins to someone else after a while, think about become a professional podcast startup entrepreneur. You'll be in a field of your own, so you can write your own rules. Wrap up. A summary. Your head is probably buzzing right with one word: opportunity. If you're like most people, you see podcasting as an exciting way to get informed and be entertained at your leisure, while at the same time giving you the opportunity to make a better living. Watch your step. Don't quit your day job until you're sure you can make a go of it. Podcasting is still such an unknown industry that your town or city may be a year or two away from having an aggressive freelance podcaster roaming the streets looking to provide podcasting services. It's okay to take risks, but think them through carefully with your loved ones to make sure they are calculated risks. The 3 things you need to know. 1. Advertising products, whether yours or someone else's, or whether directly or indirectly, should be done carefully and tastefully. But it should be done. 2. Paid podcasts are going to be the next wave of podcasts, just like pay-per-view grew out of free television. Determine if you want to become a podcaster who charges for subscriptions on a regular basis, or if you want to create one-off seminars that serve a market who cannot attend regular seminars. 3. Quit your day job and become a freelance podcaster or podcast service provider. Business may start off quietly, but as other people become aware of the blooming industry, you'll see business pick up. Stay tuned, the book is done. You know all you need to know to get podcasting, but stay tuned into the industry with some of the websites suggested in this book, and you'll easily grow with podcasting industry. Who knows, maybe you'll be the next podcasting expert helping other people learn to podcast, or the next vidcasting expert helping other people learn to vidcast. Conk lus ayon. What it's all about. Podcasting is all about getting what you want when you want it, whether that is information on interest or hobby, instruction on how to do something, or simply for entertainment. Podcasting takes the best parts of many different kinds of media and generates an audio and someday a video, geared to you or particular tastes. And not only you, but your potential customers as well. Right now, it is still generating momentum. But soon, just like the internet, there will seem to be as many podcasts available as there are interests. It's very rare for opportunities to come along that let you get in on the bottom floor. And yet, Podcasting is one such opportunity. Whether you are a listener who simply wants a way to control when and where you get your entertainment, or you're an entrepreneur who wants to make money off of this exciting and blossoming industry, podcasting is the way to go. You've learned a lot about podcasting and literally gone from beginner to pro. Through all of the technical considerations and exercises, you've learned about a whole new world of self-expression and entertaining or educational convenience. Just remember, more than anything else, that podcasting can be a lot of fun. It's all about you. Happy podcasting.